How do you think budgets of tech people offers compare to average buyers?
So $950,000 is a median sales price home in Seattle right now. People are thinking about this luxury home, right? And now it's just an ordinary house for everyday buyer. I think the neighborhood around South Lake Union, it took a really big hit during COVID.
What are your tech clients looking for? And do they care more about location, lifestyles, or long-term value?
So prior to COVID, it was all about location. Google, Facebook were moving to South Lake Union. So a lot of tech workers, they want to be closer to work. They are there to also meet people. So there's more of a social scene after work. During COVID, their needs really flipped and a lot of them started moving outwards, right? So now we're post-COVID. So this really depends on the life phase my clients are at.
Hey everyone, welcome to Outside the Listing, where hustle meets heart and the stories go beyond the sell. I'm your host Howard, and this is TC. So for today's episode, we're taking a closer look at something that's been a big part of Seattle's real estate scene: tech workers. With companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google's based here, it's no surprise that their employees are playing a major role in shaping the market. We're going to chat about what kinds of homes they're buying, what they're looking for, and why it matters. And TC's got some real stories that he's going to share with working with tech clients that, he'll be sharing. So let's just start right off the bat. What are your tech clients looking for? And do they care more about location, lifestyles, or long-term value?
So prior to COVID, it was all about location. Seattle was going through a tech boom. Amazon was blowing up. Google, Facebook were moving to South Lake Union. So a lot of tech workers moved into that area because they want to be closer to work. And one good quality I see in my tech clients that they're very hardworking and they work a lot. And a lot of them moved up from different cities in the United States. So they are there to also meet people. So there's more of a social scene after work. They can grab happy hours. And so it was all about location. But like everything, COVID changed everything. So during COVID, their needs really flipped, right? Things that were considered convenience were no longer a factor. For example, living in a high-rise building, being close to work, now they are not going to the office. And in fact, they're limited to a smaller living area. And conveniences like bars and restaurants were not open at the time. And also amenities in a building, gym, hot tub, what have you, were not available during COVID. So that totally changed everything. And a lot of them started moving outwards, right? So now we're post-COVID. So this really depends on the life phase my clients are at. Some of them have kids, or some of them have to go to work 5 days a week now, and traffic is starting to get pretty bad. So they're really considering their choices. So now it is really very different depending on their personal needs at the time.
And this is after COVID, right? In
Yes.
terms of what you're sharing.
Yes.
So you would say before COVID, they cared more about locations. And then after COVID, they care more about lifestyles because of what you mentioned in terms of family, the traffic and everything. And just having more of a house. Then do you see a generational difference even within tech buyers though?
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't call it a generational difference, but it's more like if they have kids or not. So in my head, there's a very clear division of my tech clients with kids or without kids. So that's the first thing I talked about when I talked to them, because when they don't have kids, a lot of them are attracted to neighborhoods like Capitol Hill. They want to experience the city. Maybe they move on from California and they want to experience Seattle. And once they have kids, having a yard, being a good school district, having more space becomes a lot more important. So they will be looking for neighborhoods that can accommodate that and provide that kind of amenities.
So so you're just saying that the recommendation that you're giving is more about their lifestyles and stuff in terms of where they should buy. So do you have any experience in that yourself?
Oh, actually, yeah, taking myself as an example, my wife and I, we live in a condo building in Belltown, and it's called Insignia. I actually bought it as an investment property, and I moved in when I got married. We had our first kid, Alex, there, and he's a COVID baby. His first word was walk because we live in a two-bedroom condo building, and he really wanted to get out and walk around. But what we could only do was let him walk around the hallway, you know. So when my wife was pregnant with our second, we moved into a house with actual yard. And I also work from home, so having a dedicated room for an office became very important.
Right. So did you move during the end of COVID, or was it a little after like whole COVID ended?
It was about a year after COVID.
So around 2022, 23-ish.
Correct.
I see. So in terms of that, you mentioned you moved from Capitol Hill to Queen Anne from living living in a condo. It must be nice because it's more convenient and there's probably a better view in a higher place. In terms of that, what neighborhoods do you think is the most popular among like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft workers? Because we all know that like these things are important, like what you mentioned, and closer to the highway and like stuff like that. So what do you think is the most popular for them?
So the building we lived in actually was in Belltown, right? So for my tech clients, neighborhoods like Ballard came up quite a bit, it has a good vibe, right? A lot of good restaurants, and a lot of options for entertainment. Places like Fremont, which is very close to South Lake Union, and also offers a lot of amenities, and come up quite a bit. And on the east side, Mercer Island is always brought up with tech clients who have kids, because the elementary school, middle school are highly rated, right? And it's a very family-oriented neighborhood. And but one surprising neighborhood I never thought about was actually West Seattle. And because I hear that West Seattle keep getting brought up by my new tech clients, so I started asking, like, hey, why do you like West Seattle so much? Because I wasn't used to that, right? And one of my tech clients explained it to me. It's like, hey, look, things are really unaffordable right now, and I need more space because I work at home. And coming from the Midwest, having a water view is such a luxury, and if you look around, if you still need to go to work in downtown Seattle, West Seattle is still fairly reasonable in terms of commute, but you can still maybe find something with a water view and still having a single family home with a yard at a fairly relatively reasonable price. So that's something I never thought about until they pointed out to me.
So yeah, that's pretty surprising in terms of how West Seattle is a sort of upcoming quote unquote like trend of where tech people wants to start living in because of the scenery and also being close to downtown and all of that. So on top of that, is there anywhere else that you think is gonna heat up or like kind of get to the surprise?
I think so. I think the neighborhood around South Lake Union, it took a really big hit during COVID as people were moving outside of the city. And as everybody knows, Seattle really got a bad rep with homelessness and the city being unsafe, and chaotic and things like that. So now, as Amazon, beginning of this year, announced that their employees have to come back to work 5 days a week, the traffic is starting to come back, and there's more foot traffic, and new businesses are opening in downtown. It's going to be a slow recovery. There's no doubt about that. But I think the need for urban housing or being closer to the city will one day come back. So we don't know how long the recovery is going to take, but I can see that there's like down the tunnel, right? Because one key element a lot of people don't think about is really the traffic, commute time, right? Before COVID, my tech clients were telling me from the time, if they don't live in the city, by the time they get off Merced Street exit to get into the garage of their building, it will take up to about 45 minutes. And you'll take about the same time when they get off work, leaving their parking garage to line up to go on the freeway ramp. That'll be another 30, 45 minutes. Right. So if those conditions returned, people will need to move closer to work just to save time.
I see. So I think it's interesting how you mention the traffic time and everything, but I think it's more interesting how these tech people or most of your tech clients were capable of moving from basically place A to place B or somewhere that they want to somewhere that just anywhere they kind of want, because they have that flexibility, and kind of draws back to what we talked about earlier. In terms of pre-COVID, they care more about location. After COVID, they care more about lifestyle. And I think that's really interesting. So, because as we know, house nowadays are, I mean, probably not only Seattle, but in terms of Seattle, it's not that affordable compared to back then. The average price in terms of April of 2025 is $950K in Seattle alone. And in Bellevue, it's upwards to almost 2 million, or 1.95 mil to be exact. How do you think budgets of tech people offers compare to average buyers?
Yes, it's shocking to think about, right? So $950,000 is a median sales price home in Seattle right now. And back in the day, when you mentioned, hey, I live in $1 million home, people are thinking about this luxury home, right? And now it's just an ordinary house for everyday buyer.
Right. I think it's, I saw like a TikTok about, like, it's like a trend going on where people's like going around houses and they're like taking videos of like, what I imagine of a 1 million house, and they go around like Medina or like places like that, where they're like castles, and you can tell it's like 10,000 square feet upwards, and they have a gate and everything. And then in terms, the next clip, it's like, oh, this is what actual $1 million house is. And it's like some like not too good house, sometimes even like crappy roads and stuff. Totally. And like, it's crazy how anyone can be a millionaire nowadays.
Yeah, totally. So if you look at our Seattle housing market, unaffordability is a serious problem, right? And for my tech clients, a lot of them move up from places like the Bay Area of California for tech, right, for jobs. And the way they look at it is actually a pretty simple consideration in terms of lifestyle, is that even if they're making comparable salaries as what they were getting in California, they're saving about 10 to 15% on the state income tax, right? And prior to 2 years ago, cost of living was still relatively lower
than California.
Yes.
Compared to Seattle.
Yes. And then Seattle has a lot more greenery. You don't have to worry about drought or wildfires and things like that. So there's still a lot of desirability living here. So now I feel our housing market prices are very fast catching up with the housing prices in Bay Area. So in Bellevue, as you mentioned, is $1.9 million for a median sales price home. Right. And that is crazy to think about. So what I'm seeing right now, if you think about people that can still afford a nice home, let's say in Bellevue, in the $2.5 million and up, I think for tech clients, a lot of them are, it takes dual income to be able to afford that. Maybe husband and wife both are in tech, and both have done quite well with enough savings to provide a down payment. A lot of times they have family help, for the down payment. But they are really at the very top of the income distribution as a society overall, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, they're making upwards to, if combined salary, probably $500,000 to $600,000 in terms of these software engineers. And do you think these trends will keep going, or are we seeing like a shift in terms of house viability, because you did mention, I mean, or not you mentioned, but it is insane how a house, an average house in Bellevue needs basically $2 million to like have a house, and upwards of 2.5 you need dual income and all of that. So yeah, are we seeing a trend, or are this trend gonna keep continuing, or are we gonna see a shift?
So one thing I want to point out is that what I learned is some of the salaries that get reported in the news online is that it includes RSUs, restricted stock units. So that is compensation companies provide for their hires, right? And it's not permanent salary reoccurring every year, because they do expire, and they vest and you can cash them out, right? So what I'm seeing right now by talking to my tech clients is that compared to, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago, the outlook and the mentality is very different. 2 or 3 years ago, they will tell me things like, hey, I'm not really worried about getting fired because I can get 6 months of severance and I can turn around when I'm ready to work again, find maybe even a better job. Now I hear a lot of fear and worries about what is going to happen as far as AI replacing, impacting the industry, and also, and you hear hiring freeze or layoffs, right? So when people are worried about their job security, they are less likely to make major purchases, right? They're more likely to be cautious. So on the demand side, I see that the demand to be dampened or reduced. However, on the flip side, which is the supply, I also see that a lot of my clients who have bought over the past 5 to 8 years, they're not able to sell because they don't want to lose their low interest rate. However, on the flip side, the supply is very restricted. We're still talking about low inventory because my clients who have bought within the past few years, it's really hard for them to sell and buy something else because their interest rates are really low. And we, in real estate, we have a term called rate locked in effect, right? So they're literally locked in because they're low interest rate. For them to lose their existing 2-3% and go out and buy something at 6+% is really difficult. So it's hard for them to sell. Therefore, there's very limited low inventory. Plus, if you look at the other half of the equation for supply is new development. Currently, for my developer clients, their construction loan is about 9%, right? So in a market where labor's cost is at all-time high, material, because the tariffs and everything, and inflation is at all-time high, and now financing is super expensive, it's really hard for them to take on a project and make money. As a result, they just build less. So I think the new construction inventory is also on the decline. So it's really a balancing act between reduced supply and reduced demand, right? So as a result, what we have is reduced number of transactions that are happening. So in terms of pricing, I think over the next 6 months to a year, unless something disastrous happen, right? That I think the housing price is probably going to be pretty stagnant. It's not going to crash like what people say because of low inventory, but I don't think it's going to accelerate the way that it has over the past 2 or 3 years. I think it's probably going to be a pretty stagnant market.
Right. I think you sharing about that is really interesting, because last week I just had a conversation with one of my friends who's in tech, and I would say they're kind of like in the 30s, or like a family friend, but they're in the 30s, they're in higher positions because they've been in the industry for a while now. And yeah, he currently has a house in like all the way in Redmond, and he's bought it like 10 or like 10ish years ago. And we were just talking about, because I mean, of course, being in that high of a position, being in that tenured in a company, he has a pretty high salary compared to like, yeah. So I think it's interesting how he shared that, because we were just talking about how, or I was just asking him, why isn't he trying to like move? Because surprisingly, he's actually working for a startup in California right now. And he insisted on that company to give him a remote job. And I was just talking about it because I was so surprised. I've always thought that he was here because ever since I've been here in 2022, he's always been here. And he used to work for Amazon. So and at top of my head, I assume that he's still at Amazon and stuff like this, you know? And we were just talking in terms of jobs and everything. And he mentioned that he actually shifted to a remote job in back in California like 2 years ago. And but he's still staying here because of what you mentioned, the interest rate and everything. So yeah, I think it's really interesting how you shared that aspect of interest rate and how the market's going to shift. Then for people who are in tech, what can they take away from like these clients in terms of buying? Because you did mention about how they bought and then a lot of people in tech are still holding because they don't think it's the best like quote unquote ROI in terms of selling right now or moving to a new place. So yeah, what do you think we can take away from this?
From having helped so many tech clients, one thing I really appreciate about them as a group is that generally speaking, they're very logical and also well researched and self-sufficient in terms of conducting their own due diligence, right? And a lot of them are able to tap into their massive network of coworkers who maybe have recent home buying experience, and they're very able to very open in sharing their experience and also resources. So for example, I will get a lot of referrals because they will be posting in their communities about, hey, who do you know, and people are very open in terms of sharing their resources. And, it's still buying their home, so there's a lot of emotion involved, but I think they're less emotionally driven. A lot of it is about value, about data. And I actually personally need to learn more from them about that because back in 2008, right? So there's a saying goes, when there's be greedy, when there's blood on the street. So in 2008, I actually bought a bank-owned property, and that was a great investment. And it was a 2-bedroom single-family home across the street from North Seattle College. And it was really run down. I only paid about, I think, $260,000.
Then would you say, so in terms of market back then, is that considered expensive or cheap?
That was cheap. Yeah, that was cheap. So that was definitely a good buy. And after I bought it, I spent about $60,000, gutted the whole thing, and I made a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home into a 5-bedroom, 2-bath home. And I rented out to students, and I rented out about $500 to $600 per room. So times 5, so I was getting about $3,000 plus on that property. So cash flow was great.
Right.
And then when COVID happened, I did the opposite of what I preached. I was really afraid how the economy was going to be impacted by COVID. People were not able to work, business shut down and things like that. So I sold that property. And little did I know, the real estate market and stocks actually took off, right? So I bought into that fear myself. And so I need to learn more about, being logical. And so that's something I can learn from my clients.
So yeah, it's interesting how you shared about your personal story of the building that you have in Northgate. So yeah, thank you so much, CC, for today. And it's always interesting how real estate and tech kind of mix up. And whether it's like people from Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, we can always have something to learn from. So yeah, thank you so much today for listening, and thank you to the viewers to listen. And once again, thank you to TC for sharing all these information with us. If you like this episode, please leave a like. And we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else. If you can just type our names and be on the listing as the title. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm Howard, and this is
TC.
And we're signing out. Bye.
Thank you.